Hello and welcome to Fernbank Science Center's The Sky This Week for October 24th through 30th. We have inferior planets at greatest elongation along their orbits, a last quarter moon on the 28th, and some bright summer stars left over high in the sky. Start at the beginning of the week, the 25th. On that date, early in the morning, the planet Mercury is at its greatest western elongation. This is an image from the Messenger spacecraft back in the early 2000s, really great images that came back from that spacecraft. And elongations and conjunctions, if you stand on Earth and look out into space, that's one way to do it. Or you could stand out in space, look down on the Earth. Inferior planets, nothing wrong with them, just means that they're closer to the sun than Earth is. On this diagram, imagine that this is Mercury moving along its orbit, and it gets to a place where it is farthest away from the sun from our view on Earth along its orbit. It's called the greatest western elongation. So that means that it rises before the sun does. The sun will be following it up over there toward the eastern part of the sky early on the morning of the 25th. By the 26th, look roughly in that same direction, east, the direction the sun appears to rise. Facing that direction, look over toward the left-hand side of the screen. See if you can find the group of stars we call the Big Dipper, part of the Big Bear. 7 fairly bright stars. Looks like a cup with a long handle. And the 2 stars on the end of the Dipper's bowl here point to the North Star, Polaris. Not the brightest star in the sky, but very famous. That marks the north pole of Earth pointing out in space. And keep going in the same direction. You'll come to a zigzag of stars, Cassiopeia the Queen, a smallish constellation. Keep going, and a giant square of stars is high in the sky at this time of evening. The square is the great square of Pegasus, the body of the flying horse. From this star, there are a couple of strings of stars stretching off this way, another constellation. And for this, you'll need your left hand measuring stick. Hold your left arm straight out in front of you. Lock your elbow straight. Spread out your fingers as wide as they'll go. Put the tip of your left thumb on alpharats here. And the tip of your pinky finger will stretch down to the end of Andromeda's feet, down this way. And your index finger will be pointing to a little smudge of light on the sky. Let's add in some markers to make it a little easier, perhaps. Find that Big Dipper shape, part of Ursa Major, low in the north. Follow the pointers to Polaris on the end of the little bear's tail. Keep going through Cassiopeia, the Queen, to our big distorted square for Pegasus. Andromeda, not real bright stars in this constellation, and our little galaxy. If it helps to have pictures, try this one. Big Dipper, part of the Big Bear. Pointer stars to Polaris on a little bear with an extremely long tail. Through the zigzag of Cassiopeia to the big square of Pegasus and Andromeda down here. Zoom in a little bit. Here's our big square. In fact, if you're still using your left hand measuring stick, make a fist. Your fist will fit inside this big square. It's big on the sky. Andromeda's strings of stars down this way. And that little smudge is number 31 on Monsieur Messier's list of objects that he found while he was looking for comets years and years ago. It's the Andromeda Galaxy. It's a galaxy of stars, like our Milky Way galaxy, but bigger and farther away, 2.5 million light years. And it's also called the Andromeda Galaxy because it's off in that same direction in space where we have that constellation of Andromeda. Really good binoculars or a little telescope, a really dark, clear night, you might see a little smudge or thumbprint of light. Use a nice telescope and a good camera and a long exposure, and you can get a bigger picture of the Milky Way. You're looking through the Milky Way. You're looking at the Andromeda Galaxy. A really long exposure with really fine telescopes and filters brings out lots of detail in our neighboring galaxy, a big swirl of stars. If you have a dark enough sky, you can see that little smudge with just your eyes, if you have a good dark sky. By the 27th, facing the southwest part of the sky, there are 3 bright stars, like objects, planets actually. 2 farther from the sun, Jupiter and Saturn, than Earth is, 1 closer, planet Venus, and nearly at the top of the sky, 3 bright stars that make a giant triangle, sometimes called the summer triangle. In August, that was straight up overhead as the sun was going down. Now it's following our sun down on the sky. Pictures again. Each of the constellations is supposed to be some kind of a bird. One is a swan, one is an eagle, one is usually pictured as a buzzard carrying a little harp-like instrument, a lyre. If you look at the very brightest stars, those 3 corner stars on our triangle, Vega is the brightest of the 3. It's in the constellation of Lyra, a lyre, little harp-like instrument. The tail feathers of Cygnus the swan, marked by the star Deneb. Cygnus, the swan has big wings, long neck, sort of looks like what it's supposed to be of those 3 birds. The star Altair, part of Aquila, the eagle, is the 3rd of those 3. Remember, at that time of night, just after the sun goes down, that triangle is pretty high up on the sky and over toward the southwest. Last quarter moon on the 28th. Sometimes people wonder, well, how come the light's on the left-hand side? Imagine the head of the person is the Earth. The sun is shining from the left-hand side, and where the moon is along its orbit, the light is lighting up the left-hand side of the moon. That's our last quarter phase. Pretty to look at with binoculars along the terminator, the line in between daytime and nighttime. Craters, chains of mountains, pretty things to look at. And October 28th at 4:05 p.m. is our official last quarter moon. The last quarter moon rises for us at midnight, so we won't see it when it's exactly at last quarter, but look for it early the next morning. By the 29th, our planet Venus has achieved greatest eastern elongation, farthest out to the left along its orbit, if you think it that way, from the sun, really bright in the early evening sky. Keep an eye out for that one. And as always, thanks very much for listening. We appreciate your keeping up with Fernbank Science Center's website at www.fernbank.edu. Keep an eye on our Facebook page for our Friday evening at-home planetarium programs and all the exciting stuff going on here at Fernbank Science Center. Have a great week.